Welcome to Release Your Inner Power and Boost Your Week with Ignited Decisions podcast. I'm Shauna B., a life and mindset coach, here to help busy women like you find time, happiness, and ways to fill themselves up in your everyday life. Each week, we dive into real-life challenges, from being a mom to career changes to taking time for yourself, recharging, and personal growth, so you can take action and create this part of your life right now that you truly love. Ready to make this week better than the last? Let's get started. Welcome back to Release Your Inner Power and Boost Your Week with Ignited Decisions. I am so excited for this episode. It is near and dear to my heart. I want to welcome a special person named Andi Clark with us today. She's going to be sharing a topic that I think is less talked about, that needs to be shared more of. But first, Andi, if you want to introduce yourself and tell the listeners a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, so I am a mom, first and foremost, to two kids, one neurospicy, who I had to take out of school because I could not figure things out at school. And I had been actually working with first responders at that time with their stress systems. I was so good at getting their stress systems managed, their sleep on task, and I could not. I could make certain headway with my child and with traumas, and I still was bumping up against some road on that. And the school didn't understand it, couldn't help me, just only wanted to help him when he was in the red. So I pulled him out and had to figure it all on my own, and eventually had to become certified as an executive functioning coach because I'm in a large city, one of the largest cities in Canada, and I still couldn't find anybody that had the knowledge and support to be able to help him. So I became certified, and now I actually help other parents as well with kids with big emotions.
I love that. Yeah, we met. I saw a post about your podcast and chit-chatting about big emotions. And as soon as I read it, it was like an instant gut reaction of I need to talk to this lady. I feel like this topic is huge because it's not talked about because of how much we judge ourselves as parents. We
Yes.
really get onto ourselves about if our kid, which is it's kind of unfortunate because by and large, right, society is like, oh, what is your kid doing? How are they? Like they instantly judge about how you're parenting is how your kid is responding. And that narrative needs to change. And the only way that it's going to change is if we actually talk about the real things that are going on that we're afraid to talk about. And not only for that reason, but also to bring together more moms so they do not feel alone. Because I remember me in my situation, I remember crying on the couch numerous times, like, this is not parenting. This is not how this goes. How am I messing them up? I was like totally putting it on myself, all this weight on my shoulders. And so I love that you are an advocate for this and that you are speaking about it. And that's why I had to reach out to you because I 100% just thinks that this is something that so many women can benefit from. We don't know it because they're hiding it and they're not talking about it. So I love that you're going to share some juicy gems on here about this. So when you were saying in the beginning that you had to pull your kiddo out of school, can you kind of describe, I love that you said neurospicy. That just makes my heart warm that you say that. Can you talk about more about when you realized your kiddo was neurospicy and then following the process of then just being like, I have to take him out of school, like what that whole scenario and situation was like for you?
Yeah. So I think too, when we think, well, I used to think neurodiverse, I used to think instantly autism. I used to instantly think that, there'd be a lot of almost outward signs that as soon as you met this child, you would know that their brain thought a little bit different. We used to have this little boy that we used to walk to school with, amazing. And he would talk about all these conversations that you didn't even know what he was talking about half of the time in such deep depth. And all of this. And you knew instantly when you talked with him that, he's a cool kid, but he was a little different. But with my son, you don't always like see that right away. Like he actually socially engages with other kids really well. The kids really like to hang out with him. He's very athletic and all of these things that we don't always think of that as neurospicy in a sense of neurodiverse until we start understanding how their brain works a little bit different. And so I always knew with him he was an out of the box thinker, like didn't like rules, didn't um always question why to everything, which I can't say I'm much different than that. I've always wondered, like, well, why do we have to do this? Why are they telling me just because?
Okay.
And I, the difference between him and I is he didn't accept it. If they said to me, you just have to, I'd be like, okay, fine. Whereas with him, it would rile him up and get him angry. So he'd become that spiciness, you know? And in school, there were so many different things with him. The noises, the sounds, he sees and hears things way more than other kids do. The amount of information this kid takes in is so phenomenal that I know it's going to help him in future in his life, but it was so overwhelming for his emotional and mental maturity at the time of like going to school and hearing all the sounds and hearing everything that was going on. And then so he was even from kindergarten never wanted to go to school. It was horrible. It got to where we did have a walking school bus and I took the pickup part because the going to school was just horrible. And he was much better. He would cry at our door, but he would go with the other mom. And she said he was much better at drop off than when I was there. But still, he really struggled, outbursts after school. And he just kept it together as much as he could. Although I would find out months later that he had been hitting and he had been doing things, but they weren't calling me when it was happening. So all of these things had happened through the years. And then his teacher in grade 3 was amazing and would call me. We had a code word with my son that he would use when he felt like he was about to explode. So the teacher said too, when he did explode, it was usually quick. So he would yell or scream or hit, but it was so quick. And the only reason he knew it was my son by the time that he turned around was because everyone was staring at him. But he then wouldn't engage with anybody after that and wouldn't help. So there was a lot of resistance. And the teacher was like, this kid's really smart. At that time, too, we didn't understand that eventually we did test him. And in grade 3, he did test grade 8 level math, but he couldn't put the answers on paper. So he was masking that he couldn't do it. But at the same time, the teacher knew that he was way above grade level and being able to do it, but he couldn't give it to the teacher in the way the teacher wanted. So that was creating more outbursts, which we didn't understand at the time. And so he was having all these outbursts. I took him out of school Tuesdays and Thursdays because I heard off the record that I couldn't be failed or in trouble for that. And oh my gosh, just I couldn't make a sound in the house. His nervous system was so on edge that even a sound, he'd be like, can you be quiet? He needed those days of just quiet to start getting himself to regulate. And that's when I knew, okay, something's up here. And I went and had a meeting with the school. They would only acknowledge when he was in the red. They only wanted to help him when he was actually heightened and angry and hitting and not ever figure out why this was happening. They wouldn't acknowledge that he was academically ahead, and they didn't help us find out why he was frustrated so much. And I eventually had to pull him, and it was the best decision ever. But as you said, it was lonely and it was trying to navigate it on my own. And you're wondering, am I doing this right? Am I doing it wrong? Like, I don't know. And it was unbelievable. It took him like 6 months of our house being completely quiet until he could start eventually going out and doing things like activities outside of the house because his nervous system was so taxed that he was living in a stress state all the time. And every little sound, every little thing would set him off.
And that's a lot at school. There's a lot of sounds going on. I mean, you have a lot of kiddos in a class that are, like, for example, my daughter is one that has to be making sound all the time because she has to be moving. So she's either like moving in her chair or tapping her fingers or like whatever. And if there's another kiddo like next to her that can't do that, that's very hard on both of them because the one that can't stop moving and then the one that can't hear the noises, like that's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah,
Intense.
absolutely. And that's the thing too, is that so the other day I was interviewing somebody and they said there is a difference between the system and the teachers. And
Yeah.
that I do thoroughly agree with. The
Yeah.
teachers' hands are tied on what they can do, but also when you do have kids that have such different needs, when one kid maybe needs to hum and stim and move and touch things, and then my son is like, stop tapping your fingers if it's like in the classroom beside and he can hear it. Like his hearing
Right.
is crazy, or a movement of a chair or a sighing or any of these sounds sets him off. Like there's it is I don't know if a teacher really how they would be able to manage that I was like, this isn't even fair on the teacher and the class and the school as well.
Right. Right.
So it was frustrating that the school wouldn't help me even work on it, but even if they could, I'm not sure if that would have been the best environment for him ever
Right.
anyways.
Right. I mean, good for you for being able to see that and through the self-judgment and questions of am I doing the right thing and am I messing up here? Because it's a whole slew of things you have to go through because you want, of course, you're the mom, you want the best for your kiddo. And I can agree with you when you go into a situation with the school, when you are actively trying to figure out at the same time, right? You're almost going to the school like, help me, but help me so I can help you. Like, I'm not with him in school, so I need you to explain this to me so we can break it down so I can give you answers. I too got a lot of looks of, well, how do we fix this? And it's like, I, I don't have a school environment in my house, so I'm not really sure how to fix the things that trigger because it's a different environment. But I also agree with you that it's hard on the teacher when you do have multiple kiddos that have multiple things like how do you accommodate for that at the same time? In order for the kiddo to succeed, you have to try to find out the root. And like you said, not just in the red. If you go before the red, you can fix the cause there so it doesn't get to the red. If you only concentrate on the red, that's all you're going to be doing forever. Just fixing the red if you don't actually back it up a little bit and see before the triggers or before, what have you. And I just, it's so much on kiddos. I feel that there is more of this now because back in the day, if you were acting out, you were just a bad kid and it was like, detention or go to the principal's office or remove from class. And now that we've been digging into these things and realizing, which I feel like kind of now it's like, duh, everybody's brain's different. We're all different people. Why would we all have the same brain? That doesn't even make any sense, right? And so for us to be digging into this and finding all of these things, I think is awesome and amazing because now we can accommodate for, my kiddo's different than your kiddo. Even if they had the same thing, it's still going to be different. To accommodate for those things, I wish and feel that the school could do more to help parents because of how lost you feel and how I don't even know how to describe. You feel helpless and you're just like, I don't even know if this is the right thing. And then your kid ends up being the beacon you have to look at them and be like, does this work for you? Okay, yes. Okay, we're going on this path. Does this not work for you? Okay, not that way. You almost have to try with them and work it out as you go. And you literally might not know what the next step is until you do the first one to even
Yeah.
know if it's the right thing.
Yeah, yeah, so much to that. And the thing as well, and with schools, is I think, and I resonated so much when you were telling me the story about your son as well, where they thought that he wasn't really smart because he wasn't getting good marks on his test, and they wouldn't listen to you going, okay, he knows this stuff.
Yeah.
And in you finding out that he just can't handle the amount of questions being thrown at him. But if you give him a couple of questions at a time, he can get it. And my son's the same. And this is the thing is that they have the system. No, we have to give this many questions and it has to be done this way. When there's so many different brains, as you're saying, and so many different ways these kids think. And it still blows me away that kids are grouped by age and grade because as adults, none of us are at the same level as everybody. Like there's some people, I'll take computer tech because that's not me, but I'll take like a computer programmer. They are going to be at a way more advanced level than I would be for somebody that's the same age as me.
Yeah.
Same thing. I'm an executive functioning coach. I'm going to be at a way higher level than that person, than somebody else that has never, ever studied neuroscience and how the brain works.
Mhm.
And kids do this too, because kids love to read books, especially in this information age where they can dive down these rabbit holes of the things that they actually love and want to learn and do, that they're at such different levels academically. And then we even get to maturity wise. And then we get to like where their interests lie and how their brain thinks and how they answer things, that it's just this whole system is put where it's all geared towards one brain, one style, one learning stage. Like everybody goes at that stage. And that just to me seems so in need of a change. It's so
Right.
small thinking.
I also think that with that, because I'm not sure how it is in Canada, but in the US, it's no child left behind. So what that means is if my child is not showing good marks in grade 3 and we're fighting for them to see like where they're at, they still move them to grade 4.
Wow.
So because of a social thing, like, well, if people see that he's still in grade 3, then what? And I'm like, you're missing the point. Like it's
Right.
not necessarily like they have to hold him back or what have you, but we're not helping him, just passing him through. So when he gets to high school, if he's at a grade 3 reading level because nobody's helping him, how is he going to succeed? How is he going to graduate high school, right?
Yeah.
It's it it's kind of baffling. It's
Right.
kind of baffling how
He's going to fail harder. The harder that reading gets, he's going to fail harder.
yeah.
Instead of stopping and pausing and go, okay, why is this child struggling with reading? And the thing is reading is usually an executive functioning struggle. And you have to understand why and where in their executive functioning system are they struggling to read, because it's going to be different with different kids.
Yeah.
And if we taught, like that's who I've learned executive functioning from, is a speech and language pathologist. And she has said that dysgraphia, dyslexia, dyscalculia, and like most reading and writing struggles are actually executive functioning. That's what she solely teaches now in her speech and language practice. And she is booked until 2026, speaking for schools, speaking for teachers. There's there's a school in New York that has hired her to teach all of their teachers, and they cannot believe the difference that learning this executive functioning piece is actually helping kids then learn how to do the academic. I feel like it's backwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so homeschooling my kids now, like this year, we're not focusing at all on the quote unquote academics. What I'm focusing on is with my one son is he struggles to plan it out, how long things are going to take him, his pacing. Like he just spent 3 days doing 15 slides on a website thing, creating 15 slides, and all the slides had the same image. He was just changing the text on the image based on something. And so we're talking about, why did that take you so long? Where was your focus? What was it going? Like all the executive functioning pieces of that. And yes, it's now taking him probably a week and a half to get this to where he actually understands how to start looking at that. Where should he be focusing his time? How much of a mark was that worth? And those things for him at his level, because had he actually been in school, he'd be drowning in work because he'd be focusing on the things he's
Totally.
not focusing on, spending way more time on things he shouldn't be,
Mhm.
struggling to even get started on things because he's so overwhelmed.
Yep.
And he'd be looking like he's actually struggling academically with this stuff when he's not. He's struggling because his brain can't plan, organize, figure out time sense, preferred over non-preferred. All of those are mid-level executive functioning skills. And he's the lower executive functioning skills. He can't stop himself and pause to even think about what needs to get done and not get done, because he's so hyper focused on
Yes.
what he is doing, and is this the priority? Like it's
Yeah.
fascinating. And my other son,
Totally is.
right? It is.
It
And my other
totally is.
son is the one that does not do well with more than one question at a time. So I've actually been able to find certain apps and things for him that, will give him just one question at a time of higher level academic stuff, and he can get that. And then other things too that aren't, I have to break it down for him. And we're not focusing on how much academic he does. It's helping him work through his perfectionism and fear of making mistakes, which is a mid-level executive functioning skill. Having a bucket that's only everything's good or everything's bad, and not having a bucket for gray area. And I remember when we did our psychoed eval with him, she told us he's a black and white thinker. He'll just never be able to think about the gray. And I'm like, whoa, as I've been studying executive functioning, I'm like, no, he is now. Like, he's now thinking, he's now laughing at his mistakes. He now does things just to be funny. Mm-hmm. And he's letting somebody teach him and coach him without feeling like if they coach me or teach me, then that means I'm bad. Instead of going, oh, they actually see potential in me for wanting to coach me or teach me in a sport or do things. Like, his whole view of things is changing as we've been working on that executive functioning skill of cognitive flexibility, of black and white thinking.
It's funny that you say that, because with if I get coaching or help, that means I'm bad.
Right?
Like, that is interesting, because when I also pulled my kid from school, as you know, and he did much better, because exactly what you said, he'd be drowning in work. He's like, he's looking at a mountain and he's like, nope. He's like, not even starting, because it's too much. It's too much. He cannot start when it's that much. He has to have it broken down for him. And when it was in the red of not having the assignments and things, right? That's when they wanted to send him to a different class for executive functioning. So when you said it's backwards, I'm like, yep, because now they want to send him to the class. And that was his perception, because I'm bad, because I'm not like everybody else. And they didn't call it executive functioning. They called it special education.
And I will say too that what a school talks about usually when it's executive functioning isn't the same as what I'm talking about quite often. I've learned that as well. So when I'm talking about executive functioning, like, I split up these levels of executive functioning skills into 3 levels. And the top level is teaching them how to plan, teaching them how to organize, teaching them how to manage their time. And quite often when people are talking about executive functioning, those are what they're teaching them. But in order to have those skills, you have to have the base skills. So I talk about it like a fire. I teach the kindling skills. If you don't have the kindling,
right,
then the logs aren't going to burn. And if you don't have the logs, you can't make that flame. Mm-hmm. So the flame skills are what everybody sees. And those are what people want to work on. Mm-hmm. And they're also not working on it from thinking of it of a necessarily a neuroscience. They're quite often thinking about it about academic. So if they still want to teach them how to read, all they're doing is going back. Like, so let's say it is grade 3. They're going back to kindergarten with them. But this kid might be totally fine with their phonics. That's not the struggle. It might be, which is the verbal working memory. Mm-hmm. Their verbal working memory might be strong. It might be that their nonverbal working memory is the one that's struggling, which is why they can't read. And they just keep going through it the same way academically that they're teaching it. Or vice versa. They do think, okay, well, let's just take it down a notch. And they're showing them pictures and things, which is the nonverbal working memory. But that child maybe just struggles to hold a sound. They just can't hold the sound. You can teach them the phonics till cows come home. But if they can't hold that sound because nobody is strengthening and supporting their nonverbal working memory, that kid is going to struggle. So what they do is they just go back to like the same way it's been taught. And so when they're saying we'll teach it from an easier way, we'll teach this executive functioning, they're still teaching it the same way. They're not switching and going, okay, let's actually look at how the brain works and where in their brain is struggling. So when they're doing, like, quite often they lump together working memory, but the verbal working memory is very different from nonverbal working memory.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of pieces to nonverbal working memory. So where in the nonverbal working memory are they struggling? So when we get these tests done for these kids too, and it's all lumped together, or They average out the scores at the end, but the kid might be very, very low in one thing and very, very high in the other. Like, oh, they're 60%, they're average. You're like, no, their executive functioning skill system is so struggling because of that low, low number. And look how high they are in this other thing that's probably taking over and supporting them to be able to mask it.
Yes. Yeah. I I feel like the time that it takes to figure that out is why it's not happening. That's what I feel like. I feel like the time that it would take because of the amount of kids, which I get at the same time, like you said, something has to change in order for that to change.
Yeah.
Um,
But
and
it doesn't.
there's got to be some other way. There's some other way to get there of adding this important, whether
It,
it's, you know what I mean? Like it needs to be a part of the school system to know how for them to succeed. And the only way to do that is figure out where, like you said, where in this tier, like some kiddos might not even have the first tier that you're saying. And then some
right?
might be on the second tier and they can't do the third. But how do you figure out where they're at? And taking the time to figure out where they're at, that is going to be, like you said, the foundation that's going to build them so they can do the academics because a lot of these kids are so smart. They just can't, like your kiddo couldn't get it onto paper. Mine was the same with math. He would refuse. He's like, I am not writing this out. The answer is this. And he's right. And he's like, why do I have to show my work? And I explain it to him, and to him, he's like, that's dumb. You want me to waste my time to prove that I know the answer when I can tell it to you because I figured it out in my head? I'm like, you figured this out in your head? Like, what? This is amazing. I want that. I want to be able to do that. But he would get marked down a lot because he didn't show the work. And I'm just like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's
And
almost exhausting because you're so going to bat for them all the time. You're so
right.
showing up for them. And this is what's best when they look to you and you tell them, and they're like, oh, well, we'll try to accommodate that or what have you. And you're just like, it's like a losing battle.
Hmm.
Like it's a losing battle, which is probably one of the reasons why also, at least for me, I pulled him from school because of that. Like it was just like constantly hello, 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 and then nothing. And then pulling him from school because I'm going to try to see if he thrives better with that. And I'm so glad I did. But at the time, I'm like, what if I mess him up? And what if he's like falls far behind? What if he loses his friends? Like all of these things were going through my head, and I just had to deal with those with myself and just be able to still advocate for him but in a different way because now it's like taking him from an environment that he knows to a whole new environment which he did so much better, but you don't know it till you do it, so you have to like do the thing and then you're like, okay, I
Yeah.
pull a
I
bit
get
more.
questioned all the time too about the social piece.
Yeah.
And the thing is that I think about it is I like when I was in the workplace, I didn't hang out with many people that I worked with because I'm a little, I think a little differently too. Like I love to dive deep into subjects. So I want to be hanging around with people that dive deep into the subjects I want to hang out, I want to chat about and that excite me. So my kids, they play Pokemon. They play like the card game. They have friends, actually, one friend that's just over now was just in the other side of Canada in Vancouver for regionals. Another one was in London, England. Like these kids travel all around the world for Pokemon. It's
Yeah.
crazy. They
Yeah.
speak Pokemon, they know Pokemon. It's like to such a depth. And those are their people. It's a PA day here right now. It's March break. We have 4 kids at our house right now. Not one of them goes to the same school. None of them, right? My kids homeschool, and the other 3 are from different schools.
Mhm.
And these are their people. These are who they get together on March break. Like our house has been filled with kids all week. Every PA day, weekends, they have their own Discord channel where they chat. My other son, too, is on a competitive curling team. That's where his friends are. It's where they have their interests. And I've been teaching them like how to connect, how to invite. They're the ones that invite their friends over. They're the ones that make the arrangements of how to meet them. And they're learning those skills that a lot of kids don't learn, that are kind of taught that in school, it should be kids in your grade. And if they're not, then there's something wrong with you. Even if nobody else has an interest in, like, we have a friend too, where their son's interest is in old cars, but like building out engines, pulling them out, all of that stuff. Nobody in his class was interested in that. And so that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with this kid. It just means his people weren't there. And it's helping them find their people, regardless of where their people are, And if you're teaching them that, middle school, high school, college, university, that's where all your people are, then when we leave university, we're like, oh, I don't know how to find friends.
Mhm. I love that you said that because I also had the fear of that at first.
Mhm.
And my kid has so many friends, and he hasn't been in a public school since he was in seventh grade. And I mean, it's insane. I'm like, and I come from the era where you have to be doing something with these people to meet them, but because we can connect so easily, like online and have similar interests online, that's, him getting a job obviously was one, but just like, or meeting new people, being friends with them, and then meeting them friends. Like I'm also the house where all the kiddos come, all the kiddos come, and I have teenagers here all the time. And so, it's just so fun to see like that social like stigma of, oh well, they're not going to be socialized, and they're not going to know how to do the things. And sometimes I feel like the pressure's taken off of them because they can do it in their own way and learn in their own way, and they're fine. Like it's just so interesting to me. But I love that. I love that you said that because I think it's super important. A lot of times people will think that will stop them from making the decision, but I'm glad that you said there's two people right here that are saying there's plenty of people out there, and there's plenty of kids in both of our houses, and both of our kiddos haven't been in public school for a while. So I love
Yeah.
that. We're kind
It's
of,
finding your people. And I
yeah.
think that's as adults too. We need to find our people. And
Mhm.
I was like, oh yeah, on my street, there's so many nice, friendly people. They're so nice. I'm just not the same as them. I run my own business. I homeschool my kids. Like I'm a very out of the box thinker. I want to dive into neuroscience and all of these other like fun things and I'm fun to me.
Yeah.
And there aren't necessarily people on my street that are into that. So I've had to find people like, in my city or online and in my groups and with other entrepreneurs, like people that are going into running their business. And we do, as adults, we have to look around and find our people. They're not just readily available everywhere that we go.
Mhm.
So it's so important to really switch that shift with our kids too.
Totally. It totally
Mhm.
is. One of the things that you said earlier that I love is in this process of, pulling your kiddo from school and then having the 6 months of him to decompress and get his, nervous system back to normal. And in that process, did I want to know how I have an idea, but I want to hear what you have to say. When did you decide like I want to become an executive functioning coach? Not only for, helping other, but like helping your own kids, because I found it was very hard for me to find the people that could help me with the things that I needed help with. And I went through many courses of like, do I do this myself? So I commend you for just being like, whatever, I'm doing this myself, learning this myself, because I never actually went to school for it, but I was very much in question of doing it. Can you share that whole process?
Yeah. Well, it's just, I've always been a coach. Like I've been coaching for 30 years in the health and wellness field and then working with responders since 2016, like with doing sleep, stress, and traumas. And it's just with all of those things, I think I learned as well is I got into being a sleep and stress coach actually because my son was born with all the stress signs. And it was just a natural progression because I had done like massage therapy and then I'd been in this whole, and I was doing all this stuff in the world with bodies and like in fitness and health and all this stuff that it was kind of a natural progression that okay, I'm going to start learning all of the sleep and stress stuff. And so I started taking courses and learning and being certified in it, so I was kind of used to that. And then and then I became a trauma informed coach as well. That was more to understand enough to be able to then help my first responders know what to expect and be okay and prepared for it so that they could go to a therapist for their PTSD. Though it really has helped give me all these skills. And then I think that when it got to the point with my son and I still couldn't find somebody to help, and I found this, I did take some other courses at the start. And I said, but those were higher level skills. And I'm like, this still isn't helping him, still isn't making sense. It's only once I got into this one course, which was originally just to help him. And
Mhm.
then once I started realizing and diving in, I'm like, oh no, like this is deep. I'm going deep in this and I'm
Yeah.
going to get certified in this. It was, I think, just a natural progression because it's kind of how that's how my career has gone. Interestingly, a lot of my career has been because of struggles.
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh, let me coach and learn this. So getting into that with the executive functioning, it really did start off to help him. I didn't think, oh, this will become a business.
Yeah.
And and then seeing all of his Pokemon friends and their neurodiversities. And as I'm learning about it, I'm like, oh, this one's got focus struggles. This one's
Right.
like struggling with verbal working memory. Oh, this one can't plan. Like, I love having the kids over and seeing things when one struggles, the other one steps in to help, which I really love. And seeing that and talking to their moms is when I was like, okay, it's not just me. There's a lot more out here. That's when I started expanding it because and bringing aboard though the sleep and stress stuff, all the nervous system regulation, the trauma informed coaching, because we get all these traumas from what even just so a trauma is something that is too much, too soon, too fast.
Mhm.
And so when you are a child that visually sees a lot, auditorily takes in a lot, that can become a trauma when you get so overwhelmed on a daily basis with sounds or vision, like things that are in sight, that can become a trauma.
Mhm.
So all of these things, I'm like, okay, all these skills I built add to this, I can really help parents.
Yeah.
So it kind of went that, but I honestly became certified to help him because the only person that is qualified in my city she's not even accepting a wait list anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I know there's such a need there. Excuse me. There is such a need there. And it's like us. We're the people that can help us with this, right? And then you're like, I'm going to be the person that can do this because I need to help my kid. I countless times was thinking of being to dive into executive functioning. I dove in not as like to be trained, but dove in so I could understand my kiddo's brain and how it would operate because I felt with the skills that I had with my parenting, I did not feel I was actually showing up for him in the way that he needed me to. And I needed to understand how he was wired to do that. Otherwise, I could be parenting my little buns off and he's just looking at me like, okay,
Yeah, or the
I'm obviously
outburst too.
not
Like
listening, but whatever.
we're setting them off without meaning to set them off.
Right.
And once you can as well, once we start understanding that part of their brain, once we start understanding the different executive function pieces and where they're really struggling, it takes the parts of us, these bad feelings that we have of like, why are they doing this or taking it like if it's personal, right? Sometimes we're like, why are they attacking us, yelling at us, screaming at us? And we start realizing it's not personal, that they're actually struggling and we understand where they're struggling, then we can start implementing the steps slowly to start supporting them and helping them while also implementing the steps to help us. Because when we have a child that is exploding all the time, our nervous system is like, ooh,
Oh,
can I do this today? Can
yeah.
I not? Like, you're where we start to learn to be on edge because we have these traumas of every day. Can I say this to them today
Yes.
without them exploding on me?
Yes.
And there's only so many days in a row that you can be yelled at and screamed at and, all of that stuff without it affecting you. So
Totally.
we need to understand and work on the skills to also heal ourselves. But as we're doing that, then we're like, oh, this is how it's going to feel for them. So this is how I need to support them through it as well.
Yeah. So many good things you just said. So many good things you just said. So, can you give us some things that you would do to, because you have to recharge yourself when you are doing all of what you just said. Can you give us some ideas or things that you did to recharge yourself as a mama to be able to show up for yourself and for your kiddo?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I just did an episode with somebody on this the other day, and it's fascinating because it can look so different to everybody. It really is. There's different pieces to it. So the first thing is there's always two main things, just even in working with responders, that was always to be able to support their stress system. So that is the first thing I would do for everybody. So I'll tell you those in a second. But the other piece after that is finding things that actually you like to do and bring you joy. And this may sound so silly, but for me, like doing laundry, I do laundry in the basement and nobody comes down when I'm folding laundry. So
That's
I
like,
will fold laundry for 2, 3 hours some
yeah,
days because nobody comes down. And that is kind of like my break. And that might sound silly because I'm doing domestic stuff, but nobody comes downstairs when they know I'm doing laundry. So
right.
I like put my headphones on, I'll watch, it's hilarious. So it's kind of like, what is it for you? Because for somebody that might just seem like torture to be folding laundry. It could be anything. Like even the other day, it was snowing here. We had huge snow and our grates all got covered up and ice and all of that. And so my one son and I went out and chipped the ice, and he found it satisfying because he was literally taking the chipper like an axe and pounding it down on this ice and getting rid of all of his stress. And we were getting splashed because there was still some water had thawed over this and then huge chunks of ice and stuff. And we came in wet and dirty and happy. And that was a stress relief. So I want to say that it's really whatever anybody wants to be. But that being said, first, your nervous system is usually always firing. Whenever a stress happens, we quite quickly start breathing through our mouth, which is breathing in our stress system. When we breathe through our nose, we're breathing in our resting system. So the very, very, very first thing I would say is just start breathing through your nose more often. So when you're in that situation with your kid, when you are even thinking, oh, are they going to explode? Or, oh, I hear they're going downstairs. Or they're coming down here. And you start noticing you've switched, just switch to your nose. And then I would say start actually focusing on doing some nose breathing. So there's an app I use that's free. Well, okay, if you go on this app, as soon as you go on it, it's going to look like you only have the option for the paid. Look in the top corner and it says, here, click here for free, and click that. It's called One Deep Breath.
Okay.
And so that app, if you go into it, what I would do is the HRV breathing. HRV is your body's ability to bounce back from stress. That's the number that tells you how you can bounce back from stress. So this type of breathing is actually training your nervous system so that it can bounce back from stress easier, so that it can handle stress. So it's like it's elastic. It's actually making your elastic able to stretch out more
Right.
before it snaps. So I would suggest doing that HRV breathing. I think they have a 3-minute, 5-minute, or 10-minute option. Start with the 3. If you can do the 3 every day, do the 3 and work your way up to the 10. I know even with responders, it would be amazing when they'd be like, oh my God, this is making a huge difference. If you don't want to use an app, you can even like look at a window or a picture frame or something and just go inhale with one border of it, pause, exhale, and pause. That's it. So it's like a square or a box breathing, and always through your nose and at a pace that works for you. The more, think of it like a gym exercise. So your nerves, the stronger they are, the quicker they are to react. So if you have been using and doing so many reps on that stress nerve, every single time you need to be prepared for one of your child's outbursts or anything that's happening in your life, that becomes so much stronger that stress nerve starts overpowering your resting nerve. So this breathing is like doing gym exercises for your resting nerve.
I love it.
So that's the first thing that I would say. And the other thing is hydration. So our body is 60% water. And if we stop and think about that, like think of 60% of your body, that's actually water.
Yeah.
Do you drink that much every day? Because I highly doubt you do.
Right.
Right. And so the first place that water is taken is actually from our brain. And it decreases our ability to handle stressors. It decreases our brain to be able to think, brain fog, moodiness, all of these things. So just making sure that you're having enough water and you're doing the breathing. Those are my like toolbox tools that I would say for everybody is really important. And drinking water is an easy thing to do in your day. And breathing for even 3 minutes, or just even switching from nose to or mouth to nose. Focusing on those 2 things, those are toolbox things to help your stress system, which I would put in the self-care bucket. And then that other self-care bucket is what brings you joy. And how can you do that based on the life stage that you are with your kids? So I can now go for walks because my kids are at an age that I can leave them at home. I can do those things that I couldn't before. So it's what stage of life are you at, and what can you do in the 30 seconds you might only have in a day for self-care, or the couple of hours if your kids are like, grown up, or say you have like joint custody with somebody, then on the weeks that you have them, what your self-care is very different than when the weeks that you don't have them,
Right.
right? So all of those things can make a difference.
I love all of those. Those are so good. And I love how you describe the breathing too. I've done box breathing for me. That was one of the things that I did for with the outbursts that were happening here. And so, of course, I'm chuckling because the things that you're saying, I'm like, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. Like, oh, they're coming down the stairs. I mean, the same thoughts are like, okay, get ready, and to take that maybe 10 seconds of them coming down the stairs and even starting to breathe then, just because like to set yourself up so when they come in, you can
Yeah.
handle it very differently than
Right.
oh,
And
they're coming.
right. And the thing to note is that as the parent, you're going to start to notice that when you are getting heightened, it is hard to switch yourself into doing the breathing. And so we have to put ourselves into this child's shoes. So we often say, or not we, I don't, but there's a lot of information out there like, oh, get your kid to breathe. Oh, get your kid to, change their state, go and do this, do that. And you're like, oh no, when they're in a heightened state, that is not happening, right? It is so hard when they are in a heightened state to get them to just breathe. But if you are breathing and you are able to stay calm, at least one of you is, so they're not heightening that situation. And over time, they will start noticing it and they will start matching your breath without even realizing over time, not in the middle of their heightened state, but as they're coming out of it, they'll be able to, because of that with you, that this isn't something to just expect that your kid is going to be able to do right away. This is something as a parent that we can do.
Right.
And eventually it can be a part of your child's toolbox. But like, I'm going to say for my one son, it's taken
Yeah.
years to get him to where now you'll see him get heightened and he'll stop and you'll see him take a big breath.
Hmm.
And I'm so proud of him for. And then he resets himself and then he'll help us deal with whatever's been bugging him. Still, sometimes he'll hit and yell, like it still happens, but more often he is now taking that breath. But that's been years.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that too, because I think that's a mind shift as a parent that you have to really think about and understand that with the heightened nervous system and the stress and possibly trauma, depending on what your kiddo has gone through, and for them to have these big emotions, being calm, there's so many things here. So being calm, it's almost like they're borrowing you for you to remain calm because you're not feeding their fire. And so even though they're struggling to not, I call it volcano erupt, right? Even though they're struggling for that, with you remaining calm and all of the things, they'll naturally come down, even though you can see that it's hard for them, but it's a work in progress. And because of how hard it is, and there's a lot of emotion involved, because sometimes as parents we'll hold it together and then afterwards and we're like, like cry when they leave to like let it out. But it's because it's so much, we want it to be fixed quicker, but it's not fixed. Like you're teaching and guiding them something that they may not have been able to see or do or pick up the tools because of what has happened here with what has happened before. So when you start, it's just like I had to do a lot of this is the long game. I just put in my head it's going to take 10 years. So then if it's sooner, great, but it's 10 years. That's what we got. This is what we're doing. And I'm going to have to say it 1,000 times. And that's just where we're at. And that's okay. And I had to redo that for myself so I could show up and be the calm one in the situation, even if it was 100 times that month. This is where we are. This is what's happening. And then when you notice the deep breath, you're like, I want to throw a party right now because you just took a deep breath, but you're like, this is not the time. So then later, like, I just want to say that I noticed that you took that deep breath when I could see that you were getting very upset. And I'm very proud of you for taking that. So I just want to say that I see you and I see that you're doing the thing. And it just fills them up so much because they're like, oh, yeah, I did that. Because they might not even have noticed it in the moment either. And then to reiterate it is kind of like shining a light on it for them, but to also be proud of them for it because, oh, mom did see that and I did do good. And then it almost it happens more. Because I have one kiddo where it took, I'll say 7 years probably. It was a while. And then another kiddo where it's taken two. And then I started to notice it again, very different brains, very different ways of how they're wired, very different, lives, even though they're in the same household of what they've gone through. And so it's just so helpful for us to be reminded that it's the long game, but it's you will see things, you will see the things coming out and they will happen, but to already know that it's going to be the long game. It's not going to be like this, and that's okay because that's what they're going to need. They have time. That's why they're with us for so long, because they have all this time for us to guide them. And so I love that you said that, because that is a thing. It is another thing that we need to kind of overcome as parents, but it's right where you need to be. It's right where you need to be. It's right. It's the thing that will help you through it.
Absolutely. And with what you said as well, so I have one of my kids that does not like praise, does not accept it. He's gotten a lot better. But if we said, oh, you did well with something, it's I did not. And that would get into another thing. So what I've learned is like at bedtime, I kind of do the say a thing as I'm walking out. So it's like my back's not turned. So in his bed too, he's got bunk beds, but he's got a blanket on the top bed that covers his bunk. So he can't even see me by that point. The lights are out. And it's like, as I'm about to shut his door and walk out, I'm like, oh, I saw that this happened today. That was really cool that you did that. Good night. Have a good night. And he closed the door.
Yeah.
So he still hears me, but it's not an eye to eye conversation.
Yeah.
It's not where he's being expected to respond. He then has that time in bed to actually think about it and process it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like we call it like the walk by or the fly by compliment.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that. That's such a good one. That is such a good one. And I never, until you said it, like the light bulb went off. Like, yeah, because you're not making eye contact with them. That's a huge thing also, because there's so much more pressure when the eyes are on you. Because my kids are, since they were little, there's so many eyes. They would always talk about the eyes on them. And so when you said that, I was like, oh, ding, that makes total sense. If it's in like a flyby and you just give it really fast, and it's not necessarily like, a lot of times I'll peek my head into my teenager's door and I'll be like, hey, just want to let you know that I see you. Da 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 da. Love you, bye. And then I'll like close the door, and then he's like, okay. And then I'll hear it, love you, like from, walking down the hallway or whatever. Um, but yeah, the light bulb just went off for me there. That totally makes sense. And I love that you shared that. Thank you for sharing that. It's a good one. Well, so I know that we met for podcasting stuff. And so I wanted you to share about your podcast, because if this is speaking to people and they want more information or different episodes with different kiddos with different emotions and different things, I want them to be able to find the episode that can help them the most. So will you share about your podcast?
Yeah. And your episode, the one you talk a lot about your son on that. So anybody that is listening that wants to hear more about your story with your son, that was so good. I mean, it's resonating with so many of my people because you were so honest and real about the struggles with your son. And I do think that that's like, it's what people need to hear.
Yeah, I
Right?
agree. Mhm.
So that episode on it. So my podcast is Kids with Big Emotions. Kids with Big Emotions podcast. It's on every podcast channel. So if you just, whatever you listen to, you just go on Kids with Big Emotions, you'll find it. I do have an executive functioning series that is in around the 80s. I think it's like 85 to 92 or something. There's about, I went through all the kindling and some of the log skills from executive functioning so that you can understand them more. So even I was saying today about verbal and nonverbal working memory, there's an episode on each of those to
Awesome.
separate them. And if you go to YouTube, you can actually see the slide decks where I'm walking through to really visually show you what those executive functioning struggles happen with. But that's on Kids with Big Emotions. And there's so many, everything, stress, traumas, executive functioning, all the things to do with the big emotions in kids is in there.
I love that. Thank you so much. That's so good. Oh, that's so good. It's so good to have those episodes so you can go listen to them, because when you feel lost and you're like, I just need an answer, it's so helpful just to hit a podcast and pop your earbuds in, or driving in the car, whatever, and get something, get some gem that will help you. So yeah, I wish I had that.
Right?
I got that one go when I was going through it, but awesome lady, you made it. You wanted it, so you made it, so other women cannot do like what we did, where we're working through the thing. So I love that. I love that. because everybody's journey and story is so different, I always like to ask my guests at the very end of the podcast what their superpower is and if they would share it with us.
So my superpower, I think, is just really being able to connect with people is my one, and really see people for who they are and not for what necessarily they see themselves as. Really see I love pulling superpowers out of other people is what I do. It's the coaching. I've always been coaching. I've been coaching for over 30 years. I just love to get people to see things in themselves that they didn't necessarily see and get them to see their superpowers.
It's so cool.
Mm.
That's so cool. Like your hair can stand up when somebody sees the thing and you're just
Yeah.
so cool. I love that one. That's such a
Mm.
good one. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being here and talking about this and letting people know your story and sharing all of these goodies that can actually help other parents out there that may be, where we were years ago and can help the light bulbs go off for them so they don't feel so alone and they have something that can help them out in this situation that can seem really, really hard, but also can be really it will end up being the different and you will be able to learn the things and it will get easier. You just got to take the steps. It just feels really hard right now. So I really appreciate all the gems that you shared with us that are going to help others out there.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful that we met. I mean, as you said, like it is lonely going through this, but also as we're going and trying to get that word out, it gets lonely as well. And just knowing that you and I are now connected and can even just create a larger village of people like us that are helping more people I'm just so for it.
Totally. And you've really inspired me too with um which is why I asked you to come on to my podcast because you've really inspired me to talk more about this because me talking in the circle of my friends, there are more women out there that need to hear this and they need to talk about it and get, get tools, get help, get all this stuff so they can feel not so defeated, if you will.
Yeah.
So yes, I am very thankful that we have met too because I love this. I think this is going to be great for people to hear. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed the conversation, learned something new, or got some gems to take away that will boost your week. I release a new episode each week, so make sure to click that follow button to not miss what is coming next. If you love the show or want to share a story, send me a quick message. I love hearing from listeners. If you know someone who needs this episode in their life, go ahead and share it with them. I'm sure they would love you for it. If you are looking to connect more, check out the show notes for all the social links, my website. I would love to hear how this episode helped you and what you loved about it. If there's a topic you want to hear about, send that too. All right, ladies, now is the time to release your inner power. If you're ready to break free from burnout and create a life that actually feels good, I've got you covered. You can work with me in a few ways. Join my monthly membership for ongoing support, dive into my workshops for quick breakthroughs, book coaching sessions for personalized guidance, or go all in with my Revive and Recharge Your Life coaching program to build a foundation for lasting change. No matter where you are on your journey, there is a path for you, my friend. Let's get started. DM me or check the link in the show notes to get more information.